I'm going to show you how to create a project in ClickUp. If you want to follow along with this video and use the exact data that I'm using, you can download my free guide to master everything with ClickUp using my free guide at alvinthepm.com/master guide. All right, so the project that we're going to be creating is an entire desk from start to finish inside of ClickUp. So that means everything that has to do with ordering supplies, assembling materials, following different steps, and making sure that your desk is set up inside of your office space. But before we dive in, the very first thing that you need to understand is that ClickUp has a specific hierarchical structure. At the very top, you have what's called a workspace. Your workspace, as I'm showing here on the screen, right now it's saying Al's workspace, but for your case, it will probably be your company. And then underneath that, you have a space. And that's what I'm showing on the left-hand side here. Your space, you want to think of that like your department or your team, like engineering, operations, research and development, marketing, and so on. Underneath your space, you then have a folder. So in my case, right here, I have a folder called PMO, but your folder can be any project that you're going to be leading or managing, okay? Underneath that folder, you create what's called a list. So in this case, it's showing a project management list where it's breaking it down into the different tasks for your project. A list can either represent all of your project's tasks, or you can have different lists that categorize each of the different phases for your project. Is that making sense so far? And last but not least, inside of your list, you have the tasks, which represent the physical work that you have to perform. Now, as we get into this, to get started with ClickUp, sign up and get a free account using ClickUp using my link down below. This is an affiliate link and I may earn a small commission if you do make a purchase. This supports me at no additional cost to you so I can keep creating high quality content just like this. Thank you so much for your support. Now, I do recommend creating your own project or actually setting up your own free account separate from your company so that you have your own test base or test environment to play around with and start using ClickUp. That way you can test around, see what works, see what doesn't work, and also you can see how I'm setting up this specific project in ClickUp, and so you can follow along with me. So the very first step is you need to create a space. In our example, we're going to create a space called engineering space. To do that, inside the left panel, you want to move your mouse to the spaces column and then click on the plus symbol that says create space. So left click it once and you'll see this new pop-up window appear that says create space. Inside this dialog box where it says icon and name, we're going to type in the phrase for engineering. Inside description, I'm going to leave it and call it space for engineering work. Once you fill that out, you have all the details you need to set up your space inside of ClickUp. And next thing, I'm going to click on continue at the bottom right corner. Once that's done, you can now configure your workflow that way it's specific to what you want. So if we go to starter, we'll start out with this option first, and then we'll go to default views. So in our example, let's definitely make sure we have a list selected because that's where we'll be inputting our tasks. Then we have the board, which is very important so you can see how your work progresses from one status to the next status. Then you have your timeline. So think of the timeline as like your Gantt chart. So that is definitely something that we want. And then we'll have your Gantt chart as well as your table. With those selected, let's click on done. And for task statuses, I'm going to keep it very simple for our project. So we'll leave it for to do, in progress, and complete. You can change it up however you want to do it, but for the simplicity to show you how to create a project in ClickUp, this is what we're going to be doing moving forward. So go back, and that's everything that we'll have. So click on create space, and ClickUp will automatically create everything that you just told it to do. So you can automatically see on this, on the right-hand side, which is where everything is for your project, you have your board. And your board basically shows all of your tasks written in a tabulated manner. And right here, we're showing our list. And then when you click on board, this is the Kanban board view of where all of your tasks will be. Then in this side is your Gantt chart, and then your table where you'll see things more from like an Excel kind of format. And you'll get into that more later on in this video. But for now, I want to go back to list. So keep in mind that the list is where you're going to be inputting all of your tasks for your project. So by now, we've already created our engineering space. The next step is to create a folder that will contain our project. So to do that, let's click on the plus symbol that's right next to our engineering space. In this new pop-up menu, click on the option for folder. And this folder will contain the specific project that we're going to create. So in our example, let's call this building desk project. And then I'll click on create. So you'll start to see that everything has already been created like we just talked about earlier, but this is specific to our project. So by this point, we have our space set up and our project folder. The next step is to create the list that's inside the folder. To do that, the very first thing I like to do is to rename the list so that we can understand what that list corresponds to. In our example, our list will be very simple. It will contain all of the tasks for our project. So let's rename it by clicking on this 3 dots icon here. And this is for the list settings. So left click it, then select the option for rename that appears in your pop-up menu. When you do that, you'll be able to rename the name for your list. So in this example, let's call it project plan, and then click enter. And so now your list has been renamed to be project plan, which you can see at the very top. By the way, if you're getting value out of this video so far, make sure you hit that like button to show me your support so that I can keep creating high quality content just like this. Now the next step is to customize your columns that are inside your list. Now ClickUp automatically has these different columns here for name, assignee, due date, and priority. However, I want to customize it so that it gives us the information that we want. So name is basically the name of the specific task. And then you have assignee, which is the name of the person who will be assigned the work to complete. And then you have the due date, which is when the task will be due. And then you have priority. For us, we're going to remove the column for priority. To do that, right click the column and then select the option for hide column. Now we're left with name, assignee, and due date. But I want to add on a few options here for start date, progress, and comments. To do that, move your mouse to this option here that says add a column, and you'll see this plus symbol here. So click on the plus symbol for add a column. You'll see this pop-up menu appear, and this is where you can search and scroll through the different options that you have. But I want to keep things as simple as possible. No need to overcomplicate things if you don't have to. So the first thing that we're going to add in is for the start date. So type in the option for start date, and then you'll see this new field. It says start date, and you can toggle it on or off here. So let's click it, and that will enable the start date field to appear in one of the columns. So left click it and go back, and you'll see that it appeared, but let's move it to the left side of the due date. The next thing I want to add is for progress. That way we can see the manual progress that someone is making when they're working on a specific task. So to do that, type in the word for progress, and you'll see these few options appear. I want to choose the option for manual progress. So we'll left click it, and in the field name, let's type in % completed. And what this does is you can see a percentage bar from 0% to 100%. So when someone goes into that task and they update the percentage from, let's say, 0% to 20%, you'll see that auto-populate here with the latest update. So let's click on create, and let's drag and drop it so it's right before the start date. And last but not least, I want to add in a separate column for comments. That way I can see what are the latest updates or comments that a person has already inputted into the project. So click on the plus symbol, just like we did before, type inside the field for comments, and let's select the option for comments. Let's go back, and now we have the fields that I want us to see anytime reviewing our list. So we have name, assignee, % completed, start date, due date, and comments. Is everything making sense so far? Now, as we get into this, I am going to start inputting tasks into this list to show you how to create your project. If you haven't done so already, make sure you download my free guide to master ClickUp for managing projects at alvinthepm.com/master guide. Everything is inside and it's completely free. So download my free ClickUp guide, alvinthepm.com/ /master guide. All right, so the next step, now that we have our fields customized for our list, we're going to input our tasks. So to do that, you see this line here that says add task. You're going to left click it, and that's where you can type in your task name. So for our first task to build our desk, let's say that the first task is to order desk materials. Press enter, and that will automatically save that task into your project list. The second task, let's say it's prepare workspace. So let's type that in here, and then we'll press the return key. For our third task, let's say that it's for assembling the desk frame. So let's type that in here again. For our next task, after you assemble the frame, you probably have to attach the desk surface. So that will be our next task. And then our next task, of course, has to be to install the drawer and storage units. Once you've installed the drawer and the storage units, you have to finish up and clean the desk, right? So we'll add that in here. And then you want to check the desk to make sure that it's stable, right? So we'll add a task here for test desk for stability. Then we'll do a final check to make sure everything is set up correctly. There's no loose ends, no screws that are missing. And finally, we're going to set up the new desk. Pretty cool, right? We have all of our tasks for this project to build the desk inside our project list. And as I told you earlier, you can even go to the table option here and you'll see your tasks written inside of a tabulated format, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. So what I like to do is instead of using the list option to assign people to do the work, I like to go to the table option so you can quickly assign people to the work. So in our example, let's type in me, which is Alvin, right? And just like Excel, you can drag and drop and populate the rest of the column. So because this is just a project for me, I'm going to drag and drop this one cell by left clicking this circle that's at the bottom right corner of the cell and dragging and dropping it until it goes to all the tasks. When you do that, it will auto populate and auto complete all of the assignees for all of your tasks. Now let's go back to the list. So you'll already see that the assignees have already been pre-populated. What's also really cool is that you have a Kanban board, which I talked about earlier with you. But now, guess what? All of your tasks are in the to-do column. So the minute that you start working on your work, you can move and drag and drop this from to-do to in progress and complete. So let me show you. Let's say we're starting to work on order desk materials. Drag and drop it to in progress, and immediately you can see what work you're doing and what work still needs to be completed. But we're not there yet. Let's go back to list. We still need to add in the start and the due dates for each of our tasks. This is a very simple project, and so let's start off by defining the start date for our first task. Let's say that it's on Monday, September 22nd. And the due date, let's say that this task takes about 10 business days. So left click the cell for due date, and we're just gonna go 10 business days out from this date. So let's say that it's Friday, October 3. We've defined the start and due dates for order desk materials. Now for prepare workspace, let's say that this takes place after the first task. So that would have to take place on October 6th, the following Monday. And because, it may take some time to reconfigure your room, maybe vacuum and clean up things a little bit, make sure that you have all the materials needed. Let's say that that takes about 5 business days. So that should finish on October 10th. All right, now assembly of the desk frame, that's a very simple task as long as you have all the tools, the screwdriver, maybe all the drill bits that you need just in case. Let's say that that starts on October 13th, and then that only takes 1 business day. So that would finish also on October 13th, literally 1 business work day. And then attaching the desk surface also takes 1 business day, but let's say that that starts the following day on October 14th. As you're seeing this is just an example. This doesn't mean that this is actually what you would do to build a desk, but this is just an example to show you how to create a real project in ClickUp. So for this task, let's say that it finishes following day on October 15th. So go to the calendar and let's select October 15. Now the next task for installing the drawer and the storage units, again, let's say that that takes place at the same time. This task will be in parallel with attaching the desk surface. So let's say that that is also on October 14th. Same thing with the due date. So it'll finish on October 15 as well. And finishing and cleaning the desk, because all of these tasks are pretty straightforward. Let's say that finishing it up and cleaning it will also take place on the same day, on October 14, and it will finish on October 15. Now, testing the desk for stability, just to leave some extra room just in case something comes up. Let's say that the start date for test desk for stability, let's say that that starts on October 16, and let's say that it only takes one day. So it finishes on October 16. And then the final check, let's say that that is also on October 16. So we'll pick October 16 for Thursday and do the same thing for the due date. And last but not least, we have setting up the new desk. So with setting up the new desk, let's say that that starts the following day, and that would be on October 17. And we'll rinse and repeat that for the due date. And there you have it. We have all of the tasks for the start date and the due date. And if you go into the table, you'll see all of our tasks populated with the due date. And if you go into your board, you'll see all of our tasks, but now they have the duration for each of the different tasks. So for example, order desk materials, that is supposed to start from Monday to October 3. Preparing the workspace should take place anywhere from October 6 to October 10. Now I want to show you something that's really cool inside of ClickUp, which is the Gantt chart. If I click on AutoFit, it will automatically show all the tasks that we've talked about all inside one screen. So you'll see here that all the tasks are showing in a blue color because they have not started. They are not in progress. And we can see immediately that it starts in October and finishes roughly by mid to endish of October. Now this is just the beginning with how to use ClickUp to learn everything you need to master ClickUp for managing projects. Please watch this video next, and I'll see you in the next video.